A very good evening to you if you're watching, listening from Kenya, and a good day to you if you're watching or listening from abroad. I hope you're having yourself an amazing evening if you're from the 254, that is, and I hope you're having yourself an amazing day if you're from abroad. This is the Black Hot Fire News Update with me, Dimore, and we are going to be looking into what has been happening throughout Africa on the 28th of February 2024. It's a beautiful Wednesday. It is 7:04 East African time. That is 19:05 East African time. And this is what has been hitting the headlines in Africa today. And we are going to be looking at Kenya. We're going to be looking at Guinea. We're going to be looking at South Africa. We're going to be looking at Zambia. We're going to be looking at Burundi. We're going to be looking at DR Congo. We're going to be looking at Mali. We're also going to be looking at Chad. And I'm going to be telling you what has been hitting the headlines all over Africa, from Raila vying for the AU job in Kenya to people in Nigeria still protesting. So I hope you stay with me and you can talk to me on the comments and on our social media platforms at Black Hot Fire Network. So this is the Black Hot Fire Network, the media of the 21st century, and this is what has been happening throughout Africa. We will start with Kenya, where opposition leader Raila Odinga has retracted his statement on meeting with Ruto and Museveni. Azimio la Umoja, One Kenya Coalition Party leader as well as the opposition leader of Kenya, Raila Odinga, has now seemingly taken back his words on a recent meeting with President William Ruto and his Ugandan counterpart Yoweri Museveni. Mr. Odinga says he had gone to Uganda to visit President Museveni to seek his support for the African Union Commission chairmanship bid. The opposition chief, who spoke on Wednesday during the second day of the Homa Bay County International Investment Conference, intimated that he was not aware President Ruto would also be attending the same meeting. So we are supposed to believe that the opposition leader Raila Odinga went to Uganda without knowing that the president would be there, and that they being there at the same time was but a mere coincidence. According to him, President Ruto and Museveni met to discuss an oil crisis that was bedeviling the two neighboring nations. He says, and I quote, "I've been running around trying to get support from different heads of states. I was just in Namibia just the other day, and I went to the president of Uganda after I had talked to him to go and ask for his support. We met there with Mr. Ruto, who had also gone there to talk about issues they are having with oil, the G2G with his energy minister." So the G2G is the government to government policy that William Ruto had introduced earlier when he took power. So he introduced a policy that he called G2G, that is government dealing with governments without having a broker in between. This now contradicts Mr. Odinga's statement just 2 days ago, in which he said Museveni had invited him for a joint meeting with Ruto, in which his African Union Commission's candidacy was discussed and both heads of states resolved to support it. The opposition leader made the revelation in a post on social media platform X, formerly Twitter, attached with the now viral pictures of the three leaders at Museveni's Kisozi County home, with his famous Ankole cows grazing in the background. I don't know if you've seen that picture. Several days ago, Raila said, and I quote, "Several days ago, I accepted an invitation from President Yoweri Museveni of Uganda for a joint meeting with President Ruto today to discuss the deepening of regional integration with the East African community." So he has now come forward and said that he had not accepted the invitation for a joint meeting, and that he and President William Ruto meeting in Uganda was just but a coincidence. The photos had triggered mixed reactions from Kenyans online, with some saying that he had betrayed his followers who had always thought that he was in the opposition. He was still the member of the opposition. So that was what has been happening in Kenya today, with the opposition leader claiming that he had gone to Uganda for a whole different purpose, and they just met there with Ruto by coincidence.
All right, back to that previous story I had alluded to, all to do with President William Ruto meeting Uganda President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni with Kenya's former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, who declared his candidature for the AUC chairmanship position. The latest tweet by President William Ruto hinting at the meeting between these three leaders And among the issues that were discussed was the candidacy of Kenya's former Prime Minister Raila Odinga for the Africa Union Commission chairmanship. You can call it shuttle diplomacy, but definitely seems the East Africa community might be pushing for the candidature of Raila Odinga if this photo is actually something to go by. They say a photo speaks 1,000 words. There you have it. President Ruto, President Museveni meeting former Prime Minister and Azimio leader Raila Odinga, and also discussed was the candidature of Raila Odinga for the AUC chairmanship position.
Yeah, so that is what the now opposition leaders come out to say, that the meeting was just but a mere coincidence. Anyway, let us stop talking about tales that we know are not true and head to other news where the gas plant owner in the fatal Embakasi explosion has been granted a Kenya shillings 500,000 cash bail. The owner of the business premise in Embakasi, where a gas explosion killed more than 10 people and injured over 300 others in February, right now has been granted a $500,000 cash bail. Derek Kimathi, the owner of Maxis Energy Nairobi Limited, was released by Senior Principal Magistrate Dolphina Alego on a cash bail of $500,000 Kenya shillings and an alternative bond of shillings 2 million. The prosecution had requested an extension of time to complete its investigations into the matter, but the court declined. The court was informed that the investigation team had recorded a statement from 363 witnesses, the majority of whom were victims, and had received 265 completed P3 forms from the victims, with an additional 30 victims yet to record their statement. The DCI, the Directorate of Criminal Investigation, is looking into a number of cases, including murder in violation of Section 203 and Section 204 of the Penal Code, as well as conspiracy to commit a felony. So, Derek Kimathi, the man who operated the plant that killed so many people in Kenya that we reported on last month, has been released on a $500,000 cash bail. And if you're from Kenya, if you're from Africa, then you know most cases end there. Once a person has been released on cash bail, that is the end of the case. And so, even after killing all those people in the gas explosion, even after IPRA, that is the body in charge of energy, coming out to say that they had warned of this, even after all those murders, even after all those people who died, he has been released on bail. And as I said, that is always an indicator that nothing else is going to happen. If you're from Africa, then you know that once a person has been released on bail, that is the end of the case. So it is very sad. And a big shout out to Keith, who's with me, and he's saying that's bullshit and a lie, and Jiba Jaba also, who's listening while working. So let us now head to another criminal who is allegedly the mastermind of the Kenya shillings 2.85 billion Kilileshwa gold scam, who was arraigned in court today. So Kevin Mwaura Ngodho, the alleged mastermind of the Kenya shillings 2.85 billion gold scam that involved two Malaysian nationals in December 2023, was on Wednesday arraigned at the Milimani Law Courts to face charges related to the purported crimes. Ngodho was arrested by DCI detectives. The DCI is the Directorate of Criminal Investigation, which is the equivalent of the FBI or the CIA in Kenya, at the same courthouse premise on Tuesday, shortly after attending the hearing of another gold scam case, which is currently out on bond. In this particular case, Mwaura faced charges of conspiracy to commit a felony and attempted felony. Mwaura, who pleaded not guilty for both charges, was freed after posting a bond of 3 million Kenya shillings. So he was involved in a 2.85 billion Kenya shillings gold scam, but he was released on a 1 million cash bail. That is like 0.01% of the money that he masterminded, the scam he masterminded. That is justice for you. Let us now leave Kenya with all its dramas and circuses and head to Guinea, where Guinea has named former opposition leader Momodou Oriba as prime minister. Former Guinean opposition leader Momadou Oriba has been appointed as prime minister by the country's military junta, according to a decree that they read on Tuesday on national television. The appointment follows a week after it abruptly dissolved the government. So the junta dissolved the government on Friday. I reported this. So today they have appointed former opposition leader Momadou Oriba as the prime minister. The political veteran faces a challenging task of setting up a new government amidst a general strike that launched this week over deep economic hardships and the military authorities' allegedly repressive policies. Two people were killed on Monday after police clashed with protesters during the nationwide worker strike. Trade unions have been demanding lower food prices as Guineans struggle with the high cost of living, like most African countries are doing right now. The Economist. So apparently, Momadou Oriba is an economist and he has been a prominent figure on the Guinea political scene since the early 90s. He served as the Minister of Reconciliation in a consensus government in the wake of a political crisis triggered by the killing of at least 130 people in union-led protest in 2007. The founder and vice president of the UFDG party later spent 4 years in exile in France, during which time he was convicted in absentia for a 2011 assassination attempt against Conde. He returned to Guinea in 2016 following a presidential pardon and was later pushed out of UFDG. Guinea is expected to hold elections to restore democratic rules in 10 months when the 24-month transitional period set by the junta is set to expire. So that is Guinea appointing a new prime minister. Who was the former opposition leader, and he's not the cleanest person for the job, considering all the charges that he has a lot of pending charges, including attempted assassination. I don't know if the assassination was successful, but he had been facing charges on assassination attempts. So he's now going to be the prime minister, and until a new government is formed after the 24 months. So the military junta said the government is going to transition in 24 months. So the 24 months ends in 10 months' time. Let us now head to South Sudan, where South Sudan apparently is now blaming fighting in neighboring Sudan and attacks in the Red Sea for its economic crisis. South Sudan's government on Tuesday blamed the country's economic crisis in part on the fighting in neighboring Sudan and the instability in the Red Sea, where Yemen's Houthi rebels have been attacking international shipping. With most government workers not having been paid for the past 5 months and the cost of living skyrocketing like most African countries, Information Minister Michael Makuel told reporters that outside factors have impacted South Sudan's oil exports, which is the country's main source of revenue. So South Sudan is a country that is very rich in oil and petroleum products, and its main source of revenue is oil exports. So according to Information Minister Michael Makuei Lueth, the instability in Sudan, because there has been a war going on in Sudan, the instability in Sudan and the attacks in the Red Sea by rebels that have been attacking international shipping has made exporting oil not possible. And of course, according to him, that has affected Sudanese economy, and that is why workers in Sudan have not been paid for the past 5 months. The news conference by Lueth was meant to provide an update on South Sudan's sluggish economy since the 2018 signing of a peace deal that ended the country's own internal conflict. Lueth also said that oil wells which were waterlogged by heavy floods over the past rainy seasons are not fully operational. So he also said that due to the rainy season, most of the wells have been waterlogged, and that is why the country's economy is doing badly, because they are not able to extract fuel with the wells being waterlogged. The low levels of productivity have been compounded by the fact that the pipeline taking South Sudan's crude oil Sudan to its main Red Sea hub, Port Sudan, has been blocked in areas where there is fighting. But even if the crude oil was to reach Port Sudan, it would still not be possible to ship it because of the ongoing threats to shipping in the Red Sea. That was according to Leuth. And he said, and I quote, so apart from low production, the physical difficulties confronting the oil sector, end of quote. The combination of these factors is what he's citing to have seriously affected South Sudanese economy, which is going down on a steep downward spiral, similar to that the one we are experiencing in Nigeria and in Ghana. Neighboring Sudan plunged into chaos mid-April when clashes erupted in the capital Khartoum between rival Sudanese forces. The country's military, led by General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, and a paramilitary faction known as the Rapid Support Forces, the RSF, under the command of General Mohamed Hamad Dagalo. The fighting quickly spread across the African country, especially urban areas, but also restive western Darfur region, and has so far killed 12,000 people. So since April, 12,000 people have died in Sudan, and over 8 million people have fled their homes. There's a news that you're not going to hear anywhere else. Nobody is going to tell you that 12,000 people have so far died in Sudan because of the fighting that is going on, with three military groups clashing. One being the Sudan military force, led by General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, a paramilitary faction that is known as the Rapid Support Forces under the command of General Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo. They have been fighting since April, and you all saw the videos of when the war started in Khartoum. We saw the bombings even in the airports, and so far 12,000 people have been killed, and the fighting is still going on. So more deaths are going to be reported, and 8 million people have been displaced so far. So when we talk about developing Africa and how Africa needs to grow, then you look at such cases and you answer yourself quick fast. A country like Sudan cannot grow in its current state. With people waking up and worrying about not dying, then there's no way they are going to be productive. There's no way Sudan is going to grow with 8 million people fleeing their homes and war still going on. Nobody's going to school, nobody's working. It's a fighting country. And that is the case in so many other countries, but I don't want to talk about that today. So South Sudan is a landlocked country and produces about 150,000 barrels of fuel a day, and uses Sudanese pipeline to transfer its oil to the global market in an agreement with the government of Sudan. Sudan pockets about $23 per barrel as transit fee for oil export from South Sudan. So $23 per barrel, multiply that by 150,000 barrels a day, and you're going to see how much money Sudan earns just for the fuel from South Sudan passing through it. But the money is not going to benefit anybody because apparently the people are killing each other there. Let us now head to Zambia, where Zambia is also facing an economic crisis with unresolved debts. So apparently, Zambia still has nearly 7 billion US dollars of debt on its book pending resolutions, and that is despite a deal with bilateral lenders last year, which treated over 6 billion US dollars. The 7 billion US dollars is owed to bondholders and commercial banks. The South African country quest for debt release has been long and exhausting. A deal with bondholders to restructure about $3 billion US dollars of debt last October was rejected by the official creditors. So Zambia right now is, I'm going to report this at the end of the show. It is a long feature on how Zambia is going the Ghanaian way, the way that Ghana went. Uh, it had so much debt that it could not be able to pay it anymore, and it had to default. Not default because it wanted to, default because it did not have money to pay salaries, leave alone pay the external debts. So another country that is headed in that direction is Zambia. Right now, it has over 7 billion US dollars worth of debt that are pending. So I'm gonna tell you about that in a minute, but let us now head to Burundi first, where Burundi has detained dozens of soldiers who refused to be deployed in a fight against M23 rebels in Congo. So the story goes, dozens of Burundian troops have been detained for refusing to be deployed to Eastern Congo in the fight against the M23 rebel groups as it advances towards a major border city, according to army officers prison officials, and other witnesses. They were called dissenting. The dissenting soldiers were being held in at least 4 prisons across the tiny Central African country. Clashes between M23, which the US says, so the US came out the other day for the first time and said that it believed that the M23 was being backed by Rwanda, something that we have always known, but Rwanda has always denied that it backs the M23. And Rwanda backing the M23 is a whole other story, because it is not even Rwanda that backs the M23. But anyway, Rwanda in itself is a very poor country to be able to afford all the weapons and the gun the gunware that uh, the M23 has and uses. But since they are being used as the decoy here, they are being used as the smoke screen. Let us report on what the propaganda said. The propaganda said that uh, the M23 is being backed by Rwanda, and Congolese troops have intensified their raids in recent weeks, with the rebels threatening the Congo city of Goma on the Rwanda border. Burundian president, his name is Evariste Ndayishimiye, in a public broadcast on December 29th, acknowledged the presence of Burundian troops in eastern Congo under the terms of a defense pact with Congolese authorities. He said, and I quote, "If you do not help your neighbor put out the fire when his house is burning, tomorrow it is your turn. He will not come to help you. If Burundi is going to help Congo, it is defending itself." He said in that address that it was normal for Burundian soldiers to be killed on Congolese territory. Tensions have been rising in Africa's Great Lakes region as Rwanda, Burundi, and Congo trade accusations of a support for violent rebel groups operating in the lawless area of eastern Congo. So apparently there are over 100 armed groups in Congo that are fighting against each other. Congolese president, his name is Felix Tshisekedi, has accused Rwandan government of actively supporting the M23, the March 23 movement, which controls territory near the Rwandan border. UN experts have cited solid evidence that members of the Rwandan armed forces were conducting operations in support of the rebels in eastern Congo. Rwanda continues to deny that it supports the M23. So the UN, France, and the US have come forward and said that Rwanda is the one that is backing the March 23 movement, and that they have to stop backing it or they are going to take actions. However, Kigali continues to emphasize that it has never backed the March 23 movement, and all it's doing is defend its borders. At the same time, Burundi is accusing Rwanda of supporting another Congo-based rebel group opposed to Burundi's government. The group, known as Red Tabara, has claimed responsibility for multiple deadly attacks inside Burundi. The latest attack was the one that I reported last week, where at least 9 people were killed in a blast. Burundi last month suspended diplomatic relations with Rwanda and closed their border, calling it a response to Rwanda's alleged backing of Red Tabara, which is based in Congo's South Kivu province. Rwanda continues to deny the allegation. So apparently, Rwanda is allegedly causing chaos in Burundi and in Congo at the same time. Allegedly, I use the word allegedly because, as you know, in war there's a lot of propaganda, and it is hard to know who's saying the truth, because propaganda is one of the weapons that are used in war. As other soldiers are fighting in the fields, others will be fighting using propaganda. And so, allegedly, Rwanda is sponsoring the Red Tabara group that wants to coup Burundi, that wants to coup Evariste Ndayishimiye's government, and killed 9 people last week, by the way. And it is also financing the March 23 movement in DRC that wants to coup Felix Tshisekedi. So Rwanda must be a very rich country for it to support all these armed groups. So I don't want to look at how rich Rwanda is, because going by the data and the statistics and the number of groups that it is allegedly supporting, it has to be a very, very rich country with very, very rich citizens. So allow me not to look at the statistics, because that is a conclusion that we can all draw. Burundian authorities have not revealed how many troops have been deployed to eastern Congo, They also have not commented on the arrests of soldiers who refused deployment across the border. According to some army officers who are talking to an independent uh, press, they said multiple prison guards. The arrest of dissenting soldiers started in December with more than 200 people detained. They included at least 103 in the Rumonge prison in the southwest. Two prison guards there said that others were being held in the remand centers in Ngozi in the north, Ruyigi in the east, and Bururi in the south. Uh, an army colonel in Bujumbura, the commercial capital, said many soldiers have been imprisoned for having refused to fight alongside the Congolese army against the M23. Many M23 fighters, including Congolese Tutsis, were once members of the Congo's army. The group's leaders say they are now fighting to protect the local Tutsi from the extremist Hutu groups, such as the Democratic Forces of the Liberation for the Liberation of Rwanda, whose members were among the perpetrators of the 1994 genocide against the minority Tutsis in Rwanda, allegedly. So that is what has been happening in DRC, in Burundi to be specific, where right now, if you are a soldier from Burundi and you refuse to be deployed to Congo, you're getting detained for dissent. And so far, more than 200 soldiers are in prison for refusing to go to fight against the M23 rebels, who are allegedly backed by Rwanda, according to reports from the UN, the United States of America, and and France. Don't ask me on the credibility of those sources because we all know it's propaganda. So let us now head to DRC Congo once again, where MONUSCO, when I talk about MONUSCO, I'll tell you what MONUSCO is in a bit. MONUSCO has begun withdrawing its troops from Congo. So the UN mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo is the one that is called MONUSCO. So apparently the UN had a mission in DRC to allegedly, because let me report on the propaganda, but it is allegedly the UN had sent forces to Congo to, to on a peacekeeping mission. So apparently the UN looked at Congo, saw the war that was going on there, and decided, let us send troops there so that, because the people of Congo deserve to live in peace. So the MONUSCO withdrawal called for by Kinshasa last year. So Kinshasa is the one that called for the withdrawal of the MONUSCO soldiers, citing what it said they were not effective. So the MONUSCO withdrawal was called by Kinshasa last year. It comes after 25 years of presence. It was formalized in December by the United Nations Security Council, despite its concern over the escalation of violence in eastern Congo. Congolese authorities had deemed the forces' operation as ineffective, which we all know they were, because apparently their main mission in Congo was not to keep peace, was not a peacekeeping mission. MONUSCO, which currently numbers some 15,000 peacekeepers, is still present in the region's three most troubled provinces. The three most troubled provinces in Congo are the South and North Kivu, as well as another province that is called Ituri. The UN and Kinshasa adopted a three-phase disengagement plan that has been adopted, and they want, as they said, they want the withdrawal to be orderly, responsible, and sustainable. Intense fighting resumed last month around the city of Goma, North Kivu's capital. The latest clashes have pushed 10,000s of civilians to flee, with around 6 million people in total having being displaced by the fighting. I don't even want to report on the number of people that have been killed in DRC so far, but all you need to know, and that I'm sure you already know, is that there is a humanitarian crisis that is going on in DRC right now, and that nobody is talking about or is going to talk about. All you're going to hear about is how we should free Palestine and how we should free Palestine and how we should free Ukraine.
The United Nations mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo, known as MONUSCO, began its withdrawal Wednesday with the official handover to the Congolese authorities of the first of its bases in South Kivu in the east of the country. The MONUSCO withdrawal was called for by Kinshasa, and it comes after 25 years of presence. It was formalized in December by the United Nations Security Council despite its concerns over the escalation of violence in eastern Congo. The authorities in Congo have deemed the force's operations as ineffective. MONUSCO, which currently numbers some 15,000 peacekeepers, is still present in three provinces of the troubled eastern region. The UN and Kinshasa adopted a three-phase disengagement plan that they say would be orderly, responsible, and sustainable. Intense fighting resumed last month around the city of Goma, North Kivu's capital. The latest clashes there have pushed tens of thousands of civilians to flee, with around 6 million people having been displaced by the fighting.
That is what has been happening in the DRC Congo, the Democratic Republic of Congo, with the fighting going on in the humanitarian crisis that is happening right now. So apparently the MONUSCO troops have withdrawn, but Congo is not being left alone. Congo has to be taken care of, as you know. So apparently South African soldiers are headed there. 2,900 troops from South Africa will be heading to Congo to continue with the noble work of keeping peace in Congo, because peace in Congo is very important to most people. Let us now head to Mali and at least move away from Congo, because although I'm going to come back to Congo in a bit, Congo is a country that I don't like talking about, considering the suffering that is going on there and the fact that nobody really cares about what is going on there. And all countries do is send troops there and lie to the people that they are going to keep peace. Let us now head to Mali, where at least 31 people have died and at least 10 others injured in a bus accident. 31 people were killed and 10 others were injured when a driver lost control of a passenger bus in southern Mali on Tuesday, according to the country's government. The bus carrying Malians and nationals from the West African Sub-Saharan region was on its way to Burkina Faso when it overturned. According to press release, the toll is at 31 people who died instantly and 10 other people have been seriously injured. The accident occurred at around 5 p.m. in Komantau in south of Bamako. Accidents involving public transport buses are very common in Mali, and on February 19th, at least 15 people died and more than 46 were injured in a traffic accident between a public transport bus and a truck in central Mali, which I reported on. So, our condolences to the people of Mali who lost 31 people in a bus accident and 10 others are seriously injured. We wish them a quick recovery. All we can do is wish them a quick recovery. So let us now head out of Mali and look at another African country and what was happening there. Let us head to Congo again, where Congo, despite its war and its fighting and its violence and its many bad things that I can say, has sent its first shipment of liquefied natural gas to Italy in the midst of the war. Congo became the latest exporter of liquefied natural gas on Tuesday by starting production of the first cargo a year after Italian energy company Eni launched the Congo LNG project with local partners. The first cargo ship loaded with LNG is liquefied natural gas. The first cargo ship loaded with NLG will head to the Italian regasification plant in Tuscan town of Piombino in the coming days, according to Eni. Eni said, and I quote, "With the first cargo, the Republic of Congo enters the group of NLG exporting countries, opening opportunities for economic growth while contributing to the global energy balance." Opening opportunities for economic growth in Congo, a country where when you wake up, you're more worried about not dying than economically growing. But anyway, Eni and its partners shared labor, knowledge, and technology, ensuring additional revenue for the country while contributing to Europe's energy security. Those are not my words. Those are Claudio Dezzari, the CEO of Eno, said in a statement. The project will have an annual capacity of 4.5 billion cubic meters of natural gas, which is used to heat homes and businesses. It is formed when natural gas is cooled at around negative 162 degrees Celsius to be stored and shipped safely on board specially designed ships. So apparently they are harvesting gas, then cooling it at around negative 162 degrees Celsius, and they are being stored and shipped safely on specially designed ships to transport the LNG, the liquid natural gas. Europe has been searching for new sources of energy since it decided to cut off supplies to Russia following its massive invasion of Ukraine 2 years ago. Russian gas sales abroad have fallen 40% since the invasion, according to a group called Think Tank. So, if in case you are wondering why there is the fighting in Congo has intensified and why Congo is always in a war and why there will never be peace in the DRC, you have your answer with the first shipment of liquefied natural gas being delivered to Italy in the middle of a war. I reported that 8 groups were claiming that they were not able to reach refugee camps because of the war. So apparently refugees are not receiving any aid because it was impossible for 8 groups to reach them. But the shipment companies were able to ferry liquefied natural gas from the wells to the airports, to the ships, and to Italy using I don't know what they used that the 8 groups were not able to use to deliver supplies to the refugees. But a big shout out to them for delivering the liquefied natural gas to Italy. Let us now head to Chad as we come to the end of the news update, where Chad's election agency has set dates for presidential polls. Chad's election agency has announced the dates for the upcoming presidential elections. I was tempted to say presidential elections, but because I'm reporting on the facts as they are, I don't know if they are facts or propaganda, so let me go with upcoming presidential election, affirming its commitment to transition the country back to democracy from junta rule. The election will consist of 2 rounds, with provisional results expected by July 5th. Initially, the military authorities who seized power in 2021 proposed holding election within 18 months. However, they later extended the transitional period to October 10th, 2024. The election agency emphasized the importance of holding the elections before this deadline to avoid what they termed as a legal vacuum. According to the announcement, the first round of the presidential polls is scheduled for May 6th, following the second round on June 22nd. The agency also stated that the list of candidates selected by the Constitutional Council would be published on March 24th. In December, Chadians voted in favor of a new constitution, raising concern among critics that it would further entrench junta leaders who are being led by Mohamed Idris Deby. So critics feared that the new constitution would entrench junta leader Mohamed Idris Deby's hold on power. While Deby has not officially declared his candidacy, he assumed power following the death of his father, President Idris Deby, in a conflict with insurgents. Chad's military government is among several juntas governing in West and Central Africa, which has now witnessed 8 coups since 2020. So apparently, at least Chad is going to be holding elections. I don't know whether that is something to celebrate or something not to celebrate, but that is what has been happening in Chad, with now the election agency setting dates for presidential polls. It is 43 minutes past 7 p.m. Job is coming up next. So I won't have enough time to talk about Zambia with its unresolved deaths, but I'm going to start with Zambia tomorrow and how Zambia is headed the Nigerian route. And the Nigerian route is not a good route. The Ghana route, the route that, it would have been a good route if they were defaulting on the loans because they had decided enough was enough and are not going to pay the Bretton Woods institutions money anymore. But they are defaulting on loans because they do not even have money to run themselves. So they don't have money to pay the debts. They don't have money to run themselves. And now they are headed into an economic pit. So I'm going to tell you about how Zambia is headed the Ghanaian way tomorrow. So make sure you join me tomorrow. And as we come to the end of the Black Hot Fire news update, this has been Dimore. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day if you're watching from abroad, and a good night to you if you're watching from Kenya. And a big shout out to Jiba Jaba who told me rebels do the dirt the army cannot legally do, in my opinion. Those are facts, Jiba Jaba. And a big shout out to you for always joining me on the Black Hot Fire News updates. And for all the people who watch and maybe do not comment, and for those who are going to watch this update later, and of course those of you who are with me on the network, I was also live on the Black Hot Fire Network page. So thank you Jibajaba, thank you Keith, and all the other who are with me. I hope you enjoyed the rest of your day. It's been a pleasure, ladies and gentlemen.